Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Hitchens is one of my favorite speakers. I disagree with much of what he says, but he's very right on an awful lot of stuff. Well, I thought I would do a video on his shortcomings because I recently made a comment on, oh dear, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten whose video that was I commented on. It was about a video about Hitchens in one way or another. And I said, Hitchens is great, everything about him is great except when it comes to epistemology. He's got that all messed up. And I must have been drunk or something, had a few beers, because I completely forgot his view on ethics and morality for the moment. Ethics and morality had skipped my mind for some reason. He is an absolute disaster on ethics and morality. He says a few good things here and there, like he talks about children, you have a newborn infant, if you believe in a designer, maybe there is a designer, you know. Maybe this is evidence of a designer. And religious people will take and cut pieces of the baby off, and that is despicable. And so Hitchens isn't a complete moral monster, but he does say that selfishness is too common. He says once in an interview, he says, it warms my heart, something like that. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy that there is a group of people who, in America, who actually believe we need more selfishness. He says it just makes my day to realize that there's a group of people who actually get through their day believing that. So he's just astonished at the idea that selfishness would be necessary. And he's read Ayn Rand's Virtue of Selfishness. He calls her novels transcendently awful. He's discussed Virtue of Selfishness essays with Alan Greenspan, so he's not completely ignorant of the ideas in the book. And I don't know where he gets off not getting it. He doesn't get it. I will be doing a video, I plan to do a video, I don't know if I will, on parallels between Winston Churchill and Christopher Hitchens, using Rene Krause's book here, called Winston Churchill. And the odd thing about Churchill and Hitchens is that they both started their lives as really liberal. Not libertarian, but liberal. Really like redistribute the money. I mean, Hitchens went to Cuba and helped him plant coffee after the revolution. He was so into what was going on there. He's a Trotskyite. He thinks communism is terrible, but socialism, he used to think, is the wave of the future. He now says it doesn't offer anything for the future. So he's come up on that. But Winston Churchill started his life the same way. Very interesting case there. So, off of Churchill, though, we're talking about Hitchens now. He has shortcomings in his morality, believing in altruism, even though he does say a few good things here and there. He has shortcomings in his politics. He said, someone asked him, what do you think about the health care debate? Are we going to get health care reform or not? And he says, you know, this has come up so many times since I've been in this country. He's talking about clear back in the 70s, then the 80s and the 90s. Again and again, he says, just, you know, we never get health care. People, America, he says, I actually believe there are people in America who would benefit from it that don't want it. So he says, I don't think we ever will get it. I don't know. And then he says, just wake me when it's over. He says, did you hear that part? That he believes there are people who would benefit from it that don't want it. That is a very bizarre statement because no one benefits from it. Nobody. It ruins health care for everybody. Now, I've heard that if you cut your thumb up in Canada, they'll stitch it up and there's no bill. But the problem is, if you've got a 99% blockage of your main artery that goes down through your intestines and gathers most of the nutrition in your body, that's not considered an emergency or essentially life-threatening, where in America they'll have you on the operating table in days or a week if they discover that sort of blockage. In Canada, it's just defined as not essential surgery. So what happens in Canada is all the little stupid nancy-pansy things, like you go into the doctor's and I'm depressed and they give you some Wellbutrin, or you go and you cut your thumb or sprain your ankle. But what about life-threatening stuff? What then? Well, there's a whole industry of shipping people down to America for care. And you probably are aware of what the Mayo Clinic is. And why is it that government officials throughout Europe, in all these wonderful countries where they've got free health care, why do they always end up going on vacation to America and happen to fall sick in America the day they get to America? Prime Minister of wherever was visiting America and is in hospital now for a little while for this or that. So it doesn't benefit anybody, and Hitchens, therefore, I think, displays his lack of understanding of politics. He definitely doesn't know anything about economics, and he says so. But worst of all, that was the comment I made on this video I was talking about at the beginning here. Worst of all is Hitchens' epistemology. The other stuff could be straightened out, but his epistemology is terrible. He believes that you can never be certain of anything. I don't know if he's certain of that. He believes that everything is a clash of opposites, the Hegelian idea that history is a series of ironies. One thing that's true and then its opposite is true, and then they synthesize into a new truth. It's Hegelianism. Dialectical materialism. I mean, Marx, if Marx wasn't a Hegelian, who was? Well, I'm going to end it there because the locals' music has just come on, and we'll just say that Hitchens has bad epistemology, flaws in his morals, his politics, his understanding of economics, and I don't know about his aesthetics. I don't know what he likes in art, but his record's bad. That said, I love listening to Hitchens. I love his accent. I love the points he makes. I love the way he attacks religion. 90% of what he says is pretty good. It's just he does have these essential flaws. But he's come so far from being a Marxist to where he is now. I don't hold too much against him. You know, the silly fool has read Ayn Rand and hasn't been converted, so that's the end of that. Well, I just can't go on with the pop music in the background, so there it is. Hitchens' flaws.